We're finally recording. The benefit of a diet is that it doesn't cut so hard. And remember how you recognize that when you were talking about, well, keto is what I need, right? Because you recognize that it's not as strict, and your thought process was, well, keto isn't as strict, or I won't make it as strict, so I'll have my weekends free, or but either way, you're grasping at, I just need control. I need some control because I'm out of control. And that anxiety about gaining weight is pressurizing everything. It's super pressurized. So now it's impulsive, right? Now it's like I have to do something now.
Or not even gaining weight, be just existing at this state that I'm in, and so I can't really I can't do what you want me to do.
I would agree. Yeah, it's impossible.
If I had we'll find out. When I am able to have like a cushion, then I might be able to do it.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. The problem is when your cushion, what gives you cushion is the lenience around your weight, and you're at your top weight that you're willing to be at. So that makes it so you don't have cushion. And that's why I was like, first of all, there's a process of getting to that weight anyways. But once someone's at that top weight that they're willing to accept, it's very difficult for them to relax into what I'm suggesting. You can't. It's too tense. It's you're like defensive, and because you're not willing to relax because you're at your top weight. So in a lot of people, their first thought is, well, then I'll lose weight so that I will be relaxed in the process first.
Right, and that may not, play out. You know better than me.
I do, but I think it's good for you to do it on your own. I do. I don't think you have to just. I think you should do it.
Right.
I think there's a huge benefit for you to do it.
And you hit the nail on the head. It's exactly like gambling at it, because I still think there's hope.
I know. I could win. Put the money.
I don't want you to just think I don't want to tell myself that you're just thinking, oh, she's gonna fail,
Oh, I don't see it like that. I just don't see it that way.
But I know you know more than I do, and I know that, but I still have that hope. I do.
Well, and I think we should roll with it. I think that it would be wrong for me to say, well, we have to do what I'm going to tell you to do, and you just have to squelch your hope because you're going to suffer again. I think that for some people, they need to go back there, and they need to hold the hope and do it again. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think that's failure at all.
And I'm going to, at least I'm going to try to be more aware during the process.
I love it. Yeah.
Of all this stuff, my emotions, feeling deprived. I'm going to try to be more aware. But
well, I think that don't you agree? You kind of have to be more aware and open if you really want to resolve this. You can't afford to be completely controlled by impulse,
No.
And that's what's been going is I gotta do it, and that's impulsiveness. And I understand that. It's like life or death. I mean, you gotta do it. So I can't tell you again the weird shit I used to do to be in control. That's what that is, right?
Yeah.
It's understandable. You feel that intense. That's how intense it is for you. That it is super impulsive. And so something like going on the HCG protocol is that. I see it all the time,
Yeah.
In fact, most people after their first round isn't necessarily like that because people are guarded on their first round. Really guarded because they don't know if it's going to work. It sounds, it's
too good to be true.
Yeah, and so you kind of keep your emotions at a distance with it, and that's why I think that people are so successful, is they're really skeptical, and they keep their emotions out. There's no baggage. They're actually following it like they should. like a medical procedure, and they aren't getting their narcissism attached to it yet. It's once they go, yes, now it's dangerous. It's like playing with fire. And so it becomes impulsive, like a tool now, a weapon that your narcissism is using to feed itself, right? And so it's not even about your hormones. That's why I'm like, yeah, that's funny you said that. It's not about your hormones. This is about you getting control. You know, it's amazing how we do that with our minds, how we just like, we can create a sense of goodness out of something that is so really negative. But we're trying to cope. And so it's understandable. That's why I'm like, I think you should do it. That's what I recommended at the beginning of me seeing what was going on. I was like, she just should go right back on the protocol. Just go right back on. Right. But at the time, you were still very aware of how sucky that felt. So you went to, well, I can do keto. You know, I'm sitting here watching this whole thing going, okay, at some point she's going to start crying and say, I can't do it anymore. And I'll be there, right there with her. Like, I get it.
It's amazing. Like you're like a mind reader. I'm like you can predict by every move. Like,
I know. Well, it's not, you're not special. And I don't say that in a derogatory way. You're just like every other client I've worked with. You're exactly the same.
Right, which is good. I don't want to be the only one.
Right? I know. That is a good thing because I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm just going to watch her now. You know, I'm just going to sit and let this play out because I have to. You have to be miserable. You're going to have to be really dark. And in that space is going to come. And I'm here for you there too, you know. And you can go around this freaking rat wheel. You can, because it does feel in the moment that you benefit from it. It does. You know, when you're like, I'd rather be insane. Yes, it does feel that way because it's super, super scary to do what I'm telling you to do. And it feels like you're going to die. A terrible death. And it will be permanent. You know, the permanence in feeling so horrible is a hard thing to face. I mean, that's why. And the best thing I can do for you is just help talk you through it. You don't have to. You don't have to defend yourself. I mean, I know what you're doing. I actually have a lot of compassion for it. You know, I'm not going to fight that. I'm not going to fight that. That to me is like, well, of course she's doing this. I understand why. I did it too. So I'm not looking at it from the outside going, well, she shouldn't be doing that. Well, no, of course she should be doing that. I know exactly what's underneath all this, and it is horror. Horror. You know?
Yeah. It does, I guess, it doesn't feel that bad yet. Or, you know. Like,
no, you're not that bad yet. But you will be soon. So let's get... I think we should get on the protocol. It's just a matter of clarity. This is truly, truly a matter of you getting some clarity. It's just not clear to you yet. I loved your text the other day when you're like, oh my God, my husband got it. Like, oh yeah. Why can't I get that?
I was like, really? Like, oh my God. Here I'm like flipping out like a cuckoo bird. Like he's like, oh my God. Like, you know, and I'm like, I can't handle it anyhow. You know, and I'm like, you don't understand what I'm going through. He's like, well, what are you going through? I'm like, well, let me tell you.
Let me tell you, this horrible woman is making me deal with my shit.
And he's just like, okay, I see where she's trying to take you, you know. And I'm like, it just amazes me how, I said, okay, because he was at one point close to 200 pounds, you know, and he's, you know, that's when way back, both of us went on Jenny Craig, and it was, you know, very successful. I, of course, you know, gained mine back. He did it. Or, you know, well, he's gained a little back, but
yeah, but he's probably what we would call normal.
He's normal.
How does he do that? How does he not feel bad about himself?
Right, I'm like, you can't tell me, like, when you were that weight, like, you didn't feel different about yourself? Like, he's like, well, maybe I couldn't ride my bike like I normally do.
Yeah, notice how different, like, he was so,
I didn't think I was, like, a bad person, you know, and I'm like,
oh, yeah, see, see, you can see that to you, it defines your worth as a human. Like, you are using thinness as the ultimate definition of whether you're a good person or not, whether you're a worthy person or not. And you could see then why you would have this problem.
Yeah.
It should be like, well, no shit. Anybody else who thinks the same way would have just as much obsessiveness about it, because this is how you're defining your lovability as a human being. Again, last session was so good. Did you get a chance to rewatch it?
Oh, which one?
Just the last one where I talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
No, I don't know if I got it.
Oh my God, you did. That's the last one I sent you. And we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and this third hierarchy of need basically is completely reliant on you being thinner. 100%. Right. And you cannot recover because it is attacking your first hierarchy of need. So there is no way out.
Yeah. They're in battle. They're battling.
And you're never going to win because your third hierarchy of need is trying to be superior to your physiological need for food. So you will never win. You will always go in circles because your first hierarchy of need is going to always get fulfilled. You're always going to go back to food. Out of nature. It's not even you're out of control. It's like this is how your brain responds. And it feels out of control because it is, in a way, in relation to the fact that you're primally responding as if food is going away. So you're overeating excessively because there is famine around the corner and behind you. It's almost like you have PTSD to famine.
Which I've never truly been in famine in my whole life.
Well, you have in your mind. It's a state of mind. And your brain, actually, you could see in terms of preservation why you don't even have to have famine to be responsive that way. Because our brains are wired to be aware of a potential famine, potential loss, potential limits. So you actually have, though, had famine in your own constraints and controls around food. That is famine. You just don't, you think that it's healthy, right? So we cloud our awareness of what the body's response to limiting food. What take away pleasure, when you take away, and last session I talked about the studies that happen when you take people who are restricting food, which is a form of famine, but there's food abundant around them, how you respond defensively, as if it is self-defense to eat. I have to eat to protect myself because it feels like you are being attacked by not being able to eat. So it's kind of that and that's where, we could say when you go on the protocol and it's really restrictive and everybody else around you is eating, it can feel like you are being attacked. I am at a loss. I am disconnected. It is unfair. It's that victim position, right? On the restrictive side. Yeah. So you're not necessarily seeing the primal nature of that environment. Like I'm witnessing it on the outside as someone who's recovered from it, but now seeing it intellectually, it's amazing to me. Like that is the coolest thing to witness, is to watch someone's primal urges with food in a situation where we don't have loss, but you're responding as if you are being withheld from food. I'm watching it happen. And so because you're so, the need to be thin is so, etched into your survival mechanisms right now, that's why you need to be controlled. You need control. Because if you don't, you're going to get fat. There's no doubt about it. Like you and I both know, well, yeah, of course. Like take out the emotional fear of it, you are, because you're binging, right? And that's like your body's way of going, we got to get ready for famine. And your biology becomes sensitive to that. I mean, you're metabolically more sensitive to food because of that. So it's like, so this need to control, which is going into food restrictions, the illusion is that that's what you need, that's going to be beneficial, but in reality, you're attacking your first hierarchy of need. The sense of need to control comes from the feelings of vulnerability to gaining weight, and the threat that brings to you. So keep in mind, you've got two biological primal needs that are wanting security, but they are completely waging war against each other. I want my thinness. I want my security. I am going to control food. And then there is the illusion that, oh, it'll be so much better on that end. So that gets a weird temporary sense of completion, right? But then that primal urge to eat builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and you're trying to repress it. I need to control. I got to monitor my weight. That's where people become really impulsive about monitoring their weight, because they're trying to repress these urges to eat. And they're thinking, if I can get that reward, then I won't have this agitation and irritability around eating food and wanting to eat, and, you know, that it'll calm it. And it does to a certain degree. And then eventually it blows up, and you're going to eat, and you're going to eat a big amount. And it might be for days.
So how come like anorexics don't?
They isolate themselves from reality. They don't go. They isolate. They don't necessarily go out in public. So they remove themselves from that space. So that needs to be studied. I think that's a relevant question. Why do people who are, I call them functioning anorexics, meaning they function in anorexia, like they're capable of functioning in their restriction, is because they have isolated themselves from reality adequately enough. They can't work. Your brain can't function that way. They have to isolate.
Because they don't binge, right? I mean, obviously.
They do, but they would never tell anybody, but they're purging and using diuretics.
Oh, okay.
You know, which goes on the side of bulimia, but there's tons of anorexics that are, I mean, it's a spectrum. Everybody's in the same disease, or you can say syndrome is what I would rather call it. It's just, what side of the spectrum are you on? Are you surviving in your thinness or surviving on the food side? Which one are you on? They're both conflicting either way. You know, so binge eating clients that I work with that are 400 pounds have massive amounts of shame about their weight. Massive. I mean, again, I showed you all those pictures correlated to shame and being shamed, childhood experiencing that. They're living in that shame and feeling complete dread around dieting, but they're constantly feeling like they should be dieting, but they're not. So they're like you could call them a non-functioning and anorexic, even though they're physically morbidly obese. They have that much shame about their weight, you know.
Which just makes them want to eat more.
Yeah, because they feel that they should be at some point, that they will. And they all, in their mind, I will at some point restrict. It's just, I can't do it right now. And so they don't necessarily have the massive size of binges and the frequency that a bulimic would have, who's purging it up now, versus I will fix this in a year. You know, typically when I work with a binge eater, they've been in this, some of them are like, I've never dieted. And I'm like, yeah, but you believe you should be dieting. Oh yeah, all the time. I don't think I should be able to eat. I literally should not be eating. I don't think even if I'm eating an apple, I should be eating it. I constantly feel like eating is the worst thing. It's like living in complete shock around food. It's PTSD, I believe, around starvation.
Huh.
And so you go between those two. That's why it's like, you're not really looking at either why you have such a dramatic, response to eating when you do get to eat, is because you really, really do hate the restrictions when you're in it. You love the restrictions when they give you a sense that I can control my body. That's the superficial feeling you get, which is like, oh, it's like fantasizing, or it's like sentimentizing. Oh, I'm really sentimental around dieting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just experienced that with keto. It's so sentimental. Oh, it was so good. It was so amazing. You sentimentize it. That's just superficial. When you go inside of it, it's fucking hard. You have to isolate yourself. You have constant urges that you have to control. I mean, it takes so much energy to do it because you're going against your wiring to do it, right? Similar to what I'm doing with you on the body image side. In a way, I'm going against your wiring on the body image side.
Yeah.
You're committed to thinness, right? And that's your wiring at this point. And I'm saying, well, we got to adjust your wiring there. If we don't do that, you're never going to stop waging war against food. You can't stop. It's impossible.
Right.
Yeah, you're stuck.
And
it's a trap.
I don't see see that wiring ever being able to be changed.
Well, that's because you don't have, you're just not, that's okay. I don't expect you to see it. If you could see it, you and I wouldn't need to work together because you would take it. You clearly don't have that. So that's okay. I don't expect you to see that right now. You just have to know that you're not the end all be all of knowing everything. You have to really grasp that there's a lot I don't know, and I have to go outside of my own knowingness to do it.
Right.
I'm going to have to go into complete and total vulnerability. Blindness is what it feels like to shift this. So it's totally possible. I say that because not only have I done it, but I've witnessed many people. I've worked with a lot of people who have completely rewired that. It's amazing, to be honest with you. It's really amazing to experience because you realize that what you're impulsively, your whole life has been dedicated to is an illusion. It's just an illusion. But your biology is responding as if it's fact, right? Because your brain doesn't know that you're crazy. It just trusts what you think. It doesn't know anything. It's not going to go, oh, she's fucking nuts. We're just not going to rely on her. No, it doesn't do that. Brain says, hey, she thinks it. It's real. It's about, and so this does require at some point that you are willing to go outside of what you're aware of, right? You've been saying that it's impossible. Well, that's because that's how short-sighted you are. Yeah, I get that. You don't have any sight other than that. So you have to get out of your own ego to go, I don't know it all. Clearly. Because what I know sucks. What I'm knowing here sucks. It's not the best. I wouldn't preach this anywhere.
Right.
So you have to, that comes too with humility. You have to have the humility to admit that. There's a process here. You're getting there. I really feel that way. I do feel that way. Honestly, if I didn't think that this was going to work, we would have been done already. I would have been like, yep, this isn't going to work. Turn you away. Because I don't want to waste your money.
Right.
And I don't want to convince someone to do something they're never going to do. Like that's a shitty job. I mean, how much money should I charge to have to do that?
Right.
Twice as much. To sit there and submit myself to that.
I was amazed at the gal. Such props to her. The gal that, when she went to the doctor and then realized, she was like, oh my gosh, got on the scale and I
know who you're talking about.
So shocked.
Yeah, well, she and I have been working together for a long time. Long time.
I don't think
Not right now. You're correct.
Yeah. Oh my God, I would die. I would go into
Well, that's how, so you can see how big of a deal that is for her when she's like, Robin, you won't believe what just happened. Yeah. And you can hear it, that it's not, and there was no work. We didn't have to work her down from it. It naturally occurred. It's amazing. It makes you realize what a miracle it is for people to recover. It's a freaking miracle. And that's what it's going to take for you too. I just don't find it that hard when people are willing. If you're not willing, it's not going to work. You have to be in a place of humility for sure to surrender what you're doing, to go, I can't do this on my own, because clearly my awareness is pretty small. I can't get out with the way I think. I won't get out because it's a trap. Yeah. So it requires a willingness to open yourself up to something you're not aware of. And the thing about it too is that the awareness doesn't come and then you do it. You do it and then the awareness comes. It's backwards. And if you were to talk to any of the clients that have worked through this with me, they will say, you find out afterwards. You just have to be willing to be blindly led and just do it because you're done. You have no other option. You either keep on doing what you're good at and know, which is hell, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, or you are open to an alternative. How could it be any worse? You'll get there. You will get there. You might not be there right now, but honestly, you're in a position, and I get a sense of it. And again, if I didn't get a sense of this, we wouldn't be talking. I would have ended this day 3.
But is the end result, like, always, like, being heavier than you ever been, and, you know, like,
No, it's just the willing. No, the end result isn't always that. In fact, for most people, it's not. But the end result of willingness is required. Your willingness has to be there. The physical end result it's just that's biologically your body goes to where it's the aftermath of the issue. I mean, so the person that you are referencing, it's been 30 years of extremes. She came to me multiple times. You know, the first time she was like, kind of like, I want Robin to help me with the emotional eating and to eat hunger, and then I will be thin, you know. And so it's still in the same way of thinking. And then she did that. She lived in complete and total anorexia, preached it. People came to her. She did her keto. She actually did keto. She's done all of it. And it was in the background, she's binge eating and actually hiding while she's preaching this way of being as she binged in the closet. And it came to the point where she started gaining weight and she started to isolate herself again, right? Same cycle, now manifesting in a more vigorous way, more like it's like in more intense way. And she had tried to do another round, binge ate even more. I mean, she was impulsively going to trying to control what was going on. And she came to me in a state of total and complete utter failure, crawling on her hands and knees. I have to talk to Robin. She's the only one that's been able to connect with this. So her and I have been consistently working through this now for 2 years. And it hasn't been, but she was in a different place this time around because we were working together 5 years ago. She's in a different place this time, which is I can't do it anymore. I cannot go back there. It's like I don't have any alternative. So it's been working through parts of it. Like I can accept my weight now, but I can't accept if my husband judges me. So we had to work through that. You know, we're working through what she's, you know, kept herself closed-minded to because it's painful. Right now, your whole mind is closed, totally closed to it because it's too painful. You can't imagine. It's too painful. I can't even look at it. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I can't even imagine looking at it. I can't even imagine. Right? That's okay. I get that. That part to me isn't like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. I'm not, to me, that's like, well, of course, no, duh. That's why you're doing what you're doing. I get that. I did the same thing. Yes, every single client I worked with has been here before. I mean, there'll be people listening to this going, yep, I know. It's hard. Yep, it's painful. But you get to a point where you are just done. You're so done.
Right.
And you're backed into a corner. You're backed into a corner. So you got like, okay, what do I got to lose? I know what I got on the other side, which is fucking miserable. I can keep on doing that, which is the immediate impulse. And people still have that impulse when they start this process. It's not like they don't. They do. They just know it goes in circles. They're very aware. This just goes around and around and around. I'll be here again. I might get immediate gratification right now. Immediate release, immediate control, immediate like safety. But I know I'm going to be right back here and it's going to be just as intense, if not more intense next time I'm here. So either I face it and go into it, or I just keep on going back to what I'm going into. So what I did is I told myself I can always go back to that. I'm not giving that up. I didn't give up the eating disorder. I just knew that if I go back there, I will be committing suicide. So I was put into a very, very kind of like, I have to face this shit. Either that or I face a gun to my head. So it's going to feel the same either way. Why don't I just face it? So I know that feeling that you have of impossibility. It's impossible. I know it in and out to full and completion to the point where I would rather commit suicide. I get that.
Yeah.
You're getting it too now. You're like, oh my God, this is why I'm so crazy. You're getting it too.
The thing I'm most afraid of is that I kind of equate like recovering with being fat forever.
Well, that
I
is.
I have that in my head, like,
Yep.
and I can't accept that. I can't. So if that's the end result, then I'll never recover.
Well, you have to be willing. You do have to be open to that. So this is where your ego plays into it. You're not even looking at it. I know we talked about this. You're just going off of your own, like, I can't do it. There's a fit going on. It's very childish inside, and you're refusing to grow up. That I get. I'm not judging you for that, but you have to be open-minded about it. You just have to open your mind about it, and you're not. You're closing your mind. You're completely closing your mind like a child. I don't even want to taste it. I'm not even going to do it. You have to open your mind. Just open up. And so that process will come, I believe, after you go back into dieting. I really believe it. I can feel it.
Because the way I think right now is that I am much more miserable being at this weight, heavy.
Yeah.
That's when I isolate myself from. I don't do anything. I don't go anywhere. I don't live life.
Yeah, you're your biggest asshole. You are a major dickhead to yourself. You're like a horrible person. Correct.
Like, so
totally.
This is way worse to me than the circle, than the.
Yep, and that's the
going,
illusion. Yeah, that's the illusion. So none of this is surprising. Notice how I'm like, well, yeah, of course. Like, no duh. I get that. Everybody gets that. Everybody who's listening to this gets that. Yes, you are now getting that. That's important to me. So I see that. You don't have to. I get that. I am recommending you go back into dieting. Oh, that feels so good, doesn't it? There is a point at which you will be in a different space. You're going to have to be in a different space to humble yourself. It really is a humbling process. You will. And I'm okay with that. I get that. And every time you say, I can't, I just see a little toddler screaming with their eyes shut. And that's okay. Go back into jail. I can't do it. I just know you can, and so I'm patient with you.
So there's basically what you're telling me is that
I'm patient. I'll wait.
There's people that the dieting and gaining, that cycle is way worse than just being fat forever.
Yeah, and you will get there. And that's why I'm suggesting let's go back. Keep on going. Let's try a new one. And I don't think
I'll get to that point.
I know, you clearly don't, right?
I know.
I'm just being patient with you. I've worked with enough people. Again, if I didn't think this was going to work, I would just stop working with you.
Yeah.
I'm still here. There's a reason. I have so much compassion for what you're going through. I know you can't see it.
I'm kind of confused. Like, I'm very confused.
I know, of course, because you want this, and I'm like, you just have to be willing to be guided. I said this to you last session. All you got to do, because you're refusing. Remember, I think I said this to you where I was like, you just don't want any help. But you do. You do. So I'm giving you help, and you're like, but that goes against everything. Goes against everything. And I'm like, I know. It does. It goes against everything. So let's go back and forth until you go, I think I'm going to go with you, Robin. And I'll go, okay, I've been waiting for you. We can quit.
On the other side. I'm waiting for you on the other side.
I've been here. I've been hanging out with you. And I'm on your side of things right now. I'm actually with you going into I'm handing you your drugs. I'm like, okay, here, use your drug. You can use it. It's right here. I'll help you. I'll guide you in it. Even. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not running the show. You are, but I'm going to guide you there. So I'm in your cage with you right now, saying this is a great environment for you right now. You need control. Notice how I'm going with you. I'm not judging you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been here before. Look at this tiny little cage. I can hardly breathe in it. But I'm going to sit here and support you.
Oh, gosh.
You there's something in there's something about what's the word? You're in a space where I think you intuitively know you need help.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why I'm here.
I probably have needed help, years ago.
Yeah. I'm here. I can tell. And so, it's just not your way of thinking, and how you formulate what you think you need isn't coming from what's going to help you. Right? It's coming from what you've been doing. So I'm here. You asked for help and I showed up. Here I am. Right? And so I'm like, okay, we're going to go this way. And you're like, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Okay, well, I'll go sit with you where you're at. So I'm hanging out with you. I'm where you're at. I'm not going to make you do it. So let's just sit here I'll just be here with you. And that may be what my first step is with you, is to be in this with you. The good news is I'm so not there myself, right?
Right.
So I can separate myself from it and just be like, and I can have compassion and be like, yeah, let me help you see this. I'll help you. I'll just be a voice. If anything, I'm just going to be a voice for why it's so confusing. Because it is. You're disoriented. You're disoriented in your own shithole.
Yeah.
I know. That's part of the problem, is that's why it's so impulsive. You're so disoriented. You can't even explain it. But what I've been able to do is help at least give you some voice to go, oh, okay, I can see that. I can see why I would want to go into my controls. Yeah. So it's not so controlling you anymore. You can at least have a separation, a little distance from it, so it's not as impulsive. So you don't have to get where I'm taking you right yet.
Yeah.
You just have to be open to guidance. That's it.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's like, I guess. All right, I can't see it because
You can't see what? You can't see being open to guidance?
No, I can't see that. Like being recovered.
You have no idea what that is. Of course you can't. I don't expect you to. See, what you keep on trying to do is go, well, I have to understand it first, then I'll work on it, and we reach for it. That's not how recovery works. You're trying to get freedom, right? You want freedom from all this shit. I get that. You just think you have to be thin to do it.
I don't want to be free and fat.
Well, okay. So you want free and thin. That's what I was just saying. I was like, well, we should try that first.
That's what I want.
I'm going to work. Let's do it together. Okay. I'm willing. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm like, oh, let's do that first. Let's see. Because I think you have that hope. I think we should work on that. Let's see if it works. I think that is a relevant thing to try, a trial and error for you. Can I get freedom and be thin at the same time? I think we should work on that.
Or, I'm not even really thinking thin, like...
Doesn't matter. Thinner. It's a thinner. Yeah. That's always what it's been. Yeah. It's always just thinner. Yep, I get that. Yeah. Thinner. Because you're never thin enough anyways. I mean, you might get to that destination weight, but there's always something else you don't like about it or that needs to be worked on. And then on top of that, you have to maintain it. So, I mean, that in and of itself is a lot of work. So there is a point where you're like, I can't be anorexic thing because I'd have to remove myself from reality. So there's a reality in your wisdom at this point that's being applied to your issue. So that's why you're saying, I just want to be thinner versus that anorexic, I have to be at 105 pounds. You're not doing that to yourself anymore, but that's a benefit. I mean, you've progressed a little bit, you could say. No, really, that's a huge deal when you give your the extremes lenience out of just wisdom and knowing yourself better. You know yourself better. Yeah. That's good. You are now going in a direction of progress in terms of getting yourself free. That is Like that's like one ratio. That's like 1/80, 1/100. You're getting 1/100th of what recovery feels like by just doing that. I don't have to be ungodly thin. Oh, that's recovery. That moment. That's what it feels like. Oh, relax. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see
Progress.
that. I mean, that's because yeah, I used to obsess about 120 pounds. Like that's I don't really.
Yeah, and there was one point where you thought in your mind I could never not be 120. It's all relative.
Which I never, ever got even close.
Right?
There.
And you never thought it was possible. I can't accept it. I can't. And you have. So the possibility of adjusting, or what we call adaptation, because really that's what you're working on, is your ability to adapt. You have a small space of being able to adapt. But hey, that small space is in essence adaptation. So I'll take it. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where we start. We're just going to start right there. The end goal, you're clearly nowhere close. Why would I even hold you to that? That's why you keep on saying I can't. I'm like, well, no shit, you can't. Not right now. Of course not. You're nowhere close.
Right.
You're nowhere goddamn close. Why would I even? But if we can give you some air where you're at, in space where you're at, it will benefit you. It will. But there's always a downside. There's always a downside. And then when that downside comes in, we'll adjust.
Yeah. I guess like in my mind, I think, okay, I'm just one of those people that like I can't have my cake and eat it too. Like I'm just gonna.
Well, not in this state of mind.
Huh?
I said, don't. It's not you. It's the way you think. Just be aware that you're correct. I'm agreeing with you, but it's not you. That's that. You're not. It's not you. It's not a persona. It is from the way I think. I need control. The way I think in this limit of my adaptation, when you're that limited in your ability to adapt, you do need control. You are one of those people that is not very adaptable. So don't attach it as a persona. There is a quality that is promoting this atmosphere. Think of it as a promoted environment.
Yeah.
That's important for you to see, because if you claim I'm one of those people, how can you ever get out of that? Because you're basically saying that this is what it is and there's no alternative, when in reality there is an alternative. You're just not adjusting. It's a lack of ability. It's your lacking willingness to adapt. And so when you're that limited, this is the environment that is promoted. It's very impulsive.
Yeah.
So, because you're no different than everybody else who's been in this space. So it's not you. It's this way of thinking. When people think this way, this is what's promoted. You think that way, and here's what's promoted. So you'd have to think a little differently to remove yourself from that outcome, or to diminish the likelihood of that outcome. And we're working there. That's what we're working in. We're working. That's why I'm like, okay, let's go back in, and and you're going to adjust and adapt inside of that, and then you're going to come out of it. You and I both know you're going to come out of it. You're going to be back where we're at right now at some point, and you will have an adjustment of awareness when you come back out of it. You will. We don't know what it's going to be. You don't know what it's going to be. Right? You've never had this type of guidance before, ever. You've always been in your own head.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. You've always just been in your own head. You've never really had anything to bounce around or to open yourself up to look at it. You've always had that, your perception is looking in through a straw. You've only seen what's on the other side of that little hole in the straw. Right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard, because you don't know any alternative to that. You don't realize that there's a whole entire space outside of that little hole that you're looking through in the straw. Right? How can you?
Yeah.
You don't know it exists because you've only looked through a straw. So you only see the hole at the end. That's all you're aware of.
Yeah.
So you'd have to remove the straw to go, oh, I didn't even know. Well, you're not going to know until you remove the straw. So it's a matter of getting you into that space, and it might take a lot of wiggling around. So just because you in your mind don't see that there's alternatives to the space that you're looking through, you got to have some hope that there's an alternative there.
Yeah, because I mean, like, what I see in the end is not.
No, that's what you've experienced. You're seeing in the end what you've only experienced. You've not experienced any alternative. You haven't.
Yeah.
So I understand that. That to me is like, again, a no duh moment. No duh. Of course you don't have any other experience to draw from. So you're just making your conclusions based on your only experience looking through a straw. You've never not looked through a straw. That's all you think exists.
Yeah.
I know. I'm with ya. I get that. I'm not sitting here going, well, you should see bigger than that. No, she's seeing through a straw. That's all she sees. That's all she thinks exists. And I'm sitting here going, well, there's more to that. But I can't see it. No, you can't. I get that. You'd have to remove the straw. So it's a matter of, getting you into a position, in a sense, or a space to where you're like, and you will at some point. You probably have other experiences in your life where you're like, fuck it, like jumping off a cliff, where you've been like, I just did it. And then you were like, wow, I did that blindly without realizing what, the end result. There's moments you can draw from where that, what it feels like. It's just getting you into that position in this situation. I'm not worried. I know you are sitting there going, I'm just like on my side of it. I'm like, I'm not worried about it. I can sense that you do have a willingness in here. You just have to let go at some point of the straw. And I'm not going to take it from you. I'm not going to make you do this. It's just a matter of if you're willing to work the ins and outs of it, then I'm not going to go anywhere.
Yeah,
I care enough about your situation, I understand where you're at. It's not good.
And I think I have it ingrained in my head that, like, there's people that just, like, aren't interested in eating ice cream or pizza or, like, food that not necessarily is bad, but can make you gain weight. Like, obviously it's common sense. If you eat ice cream every day and McDonald's, you would gain versus if you're eating even. You're not talking about like quantities, right? Because you have you right. Like I'm just talking just general, even just a moderate portion. I mean, like if I were to want that kind of food all the time, it's still going to make me fat. Like, well,
if you eat too much of it, too much. You can eat too much vegetables and get fat. You know that, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. It would take a lot.
Not really. It just takes relevant to your hormonal balance point. If you're not hungry and you're eating veggies, it can cause problems.
Okay, so so you're more on the lines of it's not what you eat, really. It's just if you're hungry or not hungry.
Well, it's in relation to your biology. Yeah, I'm into endocrinology. I'm into current endocrinology. Yeah, which is always relevant. It's the body doesn't go, oh, that's bad, that's good. That's your projection of the narcissism and your positionality, right? Of survival mode. Body doesn't think like that.
Yeah, I think
it does nutritionally, right? We can say, well, of course, nutritionally, it's not as dense. It's not as dense nutritionally.
Right, and it has more saturated fat. It's not as healthy from a nutritional
standpoint.
If
you eat it all the time. But, the same thing is when you're eating, let's just say kale all the time, there's a point where it can be toxic. You're affecting your organs in
who the hell wants to eat kale all the time?
A lot of people, actually. There's a lot of people. I don't know even water is toxic. Yeah, well, and what we're talking about, it's, again, I'm in your little straw right now talking to you inside a straw. It's like there's such a big amount of information that's outside of this. But your thought around what's fattening is definitely coming from your illness, right? Because you're not open to looking at the current awareness would be, oh, well, the body's response to food is the same. It's just dependent on the dosing, the quantities. I mean, go back to chemistry,
Well, that's what I was
organic chemistry. It's like you need to be educated on that in, cell biology and those fundamental, it's all dose dependent, quantity dependent. And so just by eating, in fact, my grandma Margie had ice cream every day, every single day. She had ice cream.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
My mom, after she died, felt bad that she didn't do it more often for her. She was frail. She was tiny. And my mom, for example, she lived on McDonald's every day after her brain cancer. Because her palate, and after chemo, it was just like nothing. And you got to keep in mind, my mother had her own garden. She was a master gardener beforehand. Everything was homemade. She made homemade bread. She used, farm raised chicken, eggs. I mean, it was amazing. But after chemo and after her brain surgery, she didn't want anything but Egg McMuffins and a cheeseburger from McDonald's. And hell yeah, we're going to go get that for her. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Why would you withhold that from someone who is terminal?
Well, of course not.
And it was 5 to 6 years that she was terminal. So 5 years.
Yeah.
Do you think her body went to shit?
No. Well, I mean, my dad had esophageal cancer and got, he's always was heavy. Like my whole life. Like he was never thin until now. And he lost 50 pounds and now he can just eat whatever he wants and he doesn't gain,
Okay, so you have so much evidence around you. Massive. I mean, the evidence is so clear. I can't tell you too, even when I had the gym for 13 years training people who would come in and they'd go to nutritionists and they had dietitians and I have so many clients who all they eat is kale and they're vegetarians and they're also eating, or they're ovo-vegetarians, or, and they don't understand why they're overweight. Well, it's because they're not looking at endocrinology. It's like, well, you've been guided by the diet industry. It's like Shady McShady Pants of all industries telling you it's McDonald's that makes you fat. Well, no, it's not. It's your endocrinology. And not only that, but your stress.
Yeah.
And stress around food. One thing I want you to really look at is what stress does. Do you recall gluconeogenesis? Do you know what that is? I know you know the word.
Yeah.
Because you have a very basic kind of underlying basic. It's probably been since your first year of human phys. Gluconeogenesis is the basic ability. It's the basic ability for the body to produce its own glucose, and it does it through gluconeogenesis. And it does it in the muscles, but primarily in the liver. Okay, takes stored energy and it creates glucose and puts it in your bloodstream. When you're under stress, cortisol, and when you have that inflammation in the brain from your perceptions, okay, because you can perceive fear. What happens when you perceive an environmental shift, okay, and in your way of looking at it promotes fear. Immediately your body starts to produce glucose and puts it in your bloodstream. Stress equates to blood sugar. Okay, so when someone has high blood sugar, they didn't have to eat. You don't have to eat to have high blood sugar at all.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, this is basic fundamentals.
Yeah, I'm old. And
well, you've been brainwashed by the diet industry, so it's not that.
True.
It's basic, fundamental, but they don't tell you about this shit because they want you to think it's you eating that makes you that way. No, stress is a basic. It's like, and it's a good thing. We look at it and go, yeah, that's amazing how the body can do that under these circumstances. It's basically reducing your need for food because it's seeing that there might be a stress in the environment. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, so imagine that you're under stress, under fear, eating food.
That's even worse.
Oh my God.
That's like gallons of cortisol and glucose being released.
It's actually more with your fear, and the food is actually less because it has to go through a digestive process, but you're stimulating that fear response while you're eating. So the food has to be digested. It's not even in a form of to be used as energy. It won't be for quite some time. Plus, when it is energy fuel, we don't know if it's going to be muscle energy, glycogen. We don't know where it's going to be stored, whether it's fat in your liver. And so the whole process of the food actually energizing the body is not immediate. But the stress you're experiencing while you're eating food is magnifying the body's response to that food.
Mm-hmm. So if you eat like without shame or guilt, then you're not
going to have that response. Correct.
Okay.
But as you're feeling like I have done something wrong, this food is dangerous, you are literally blowing up your body's stress response. Your blood sugar is really high. So when people have these issues, they are more sensitive to weight gain. I wonder why.
Right.
Stress.
Well, if you have any recommended books on like endocrinology
that is not, none of that's it's worthless information for you. It is literally worthless information. It won't do anything for you. I mean, I can give you this little bits, but it's not going to change your fear and the shame you project into McDonald's.
Well, if I understand it, better.
Well, there it is. Everything I'm telling you did not come from a book. It comes from reading. I read medical journals, or they're not medical journals. They're science. It's journals of. I read the science of it. The science of gluconeogenesis. Just Google it.
Okay.
It's like, okay, it's when you're stressed, under fear, your body breaks down liver glycogen and pushes the glucose into your bloodstream. You have high blood sugar under stress. It's like, of course, that's old science, right? Add that to when you're eating. Because that is fattening. You have some illusion in your head. That's fattening. What happens to your response while you eat that food?
Right, it increases.
Okay, so should we promoting and fear-mongering food as fattening?
No.
Is it the food that's fattening, or is it the fear that you have of that food while you eat it?
The fear and the amount you eat, possibly.
The fear is by far the main thing. Well, because you could say you're based on your fear and the fact that you think you have failed, your amount goes higher, which is all surrounded by the fear of it. Right? So if you have anxiety while you're eating, you can see why you would overeat. You're not going to eat just one little lick while you have anxiety about what you did wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I mean, you need a wider. We are needing to open up your straw that you're looking through. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
I see.
Yeah. So this whole concept of fear-mongering food has had a dramatic impact on our culture, because there's a massive impact it has made. I don't know if you knew this, but there was a study that just came out that people checking in to recovery centers for eating disorders has doubled in 6 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Doubled.
I mean, I believe that. I can see that.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's maybe this push with the fear-mongering of food that's going on? Just a thought. I think that's absolutely an addition to it, not a, I think it's promoting the environment. We look at these beliefs that promote the environment. It's not one thing. It's the thin supremacy, the shaming that's going on, the whole obesity epidemic. Again, we talked about this last session. The whole concept of calling it an epidemic, as if obesity is an epidemic, is actually inherently shaming it. And so they correlate a lot of this whole push to shaming obesity is actually completely 80% more likelihood of binging, 80% after going and being shamed because of your weight. So look at the statistical significance when you look at binging and the correlation that you 80% are more likely to binge if you feel bad about your weight.
Oh, well, yeah.
What does that have to do with food? Right? You see what I mean? Like, it's not the food.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the shame about your weight. The food is just, again, that to me is like self-preserving. That's that first hierarchy of need. You immediately feel your food is threatened. Immediately food has been threatened. Just by believing that there's something wrong with your weight. Your food is immediately attacked. It has to be.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Anyways,
well,
so before I go, which I do need to go, I've got like back to back clients today. I shoved them all in. You're going to start the protocol. I do believe this is the best situation for you. I think I would suggest you, how much do you have left of that HCG?
Oh, I have probably, like probably 45 days.
Got it. Okay. So you need to load. You need to make sure you're injecting. Are you injecting?
Well, I'm gonna load Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay. So are you injecting?
Okay.
I was just wanting to know if you were doing sublingual tablets. Are you doing? What are you doing?
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay.
Inject. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So inject on Friday. Load. You don't have to load on Friday. You really just need to load you don't have to load 3 days straight. You can just load on Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Unless you really are wanting to load to prepare you for your famine, you go for it.
I've read 2 days some places and 3 days some places.
Yeah, well, the leaner you get, the leaner you are, which you're pretty lean, you could load a 3rd day. It's just hard. It's hard. So you have to be realistic with yourself. So if you can put 2 solid days in, I'd rather you focus in on Saturday and Sunday and get 2 solid days of loading in.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah.